What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video here at Chris's MMA Universe. I know this is an MMA channel, as I just said in my intro, but I do have to dive into this boxing match with Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. Now, for these two men, these two pro athletes that dominated the boxing world in the late 80s and 90s, for them to actually go at it right now, with Mike Tyson being 54, Roy Jones Jr. being 51, it's just, now, to me, it makes no sense. To me, it makes no sense because Mike Tyson is one of the greatest boxers that has ever walked this earth. And the same goes for Roy Jones Jr. And I just don't see why they need to do this. There's nothing that they need to prove to anyone. Of course, people are going to tune into this fight because who would not want to watch Mike Tyson, especially the younger generation, where the older generation will tell the younger generation on how great Mike Tyson was. You could show them clips. You could show them, his highlights. You could show them his highlight reel, which, was just out of this world phenomenal. And the same with Roy Jones Jr. So for the younger generation to sit down and actually be able to watch a fight with these two men to go at it, two of the greatest, of the bunch, to actually go at it is phenomenal to do. It's great to see. But at their age, I just don't see why they need to do this. It reminds me of, now I know these are two totally different worlds. I completely agree, but I do have to mention when, Chuck Liddell went up against Tito Ortiz, and they were both in their 40s. And, that was rough to see, So for Mike Tyson to go up against Roy Jones, both men being in their 50s, I just don't see what they have to gain, really. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that they're going to receive a lot of money for this one. A lot of people are going to tune in. I know they will. It's just at their age, I'm not really sure why they need to do it. But let's look at this just a little bit. Mike Tyson is 54, and he still has speed. Mike Tyson still has speed on him. And it looks like he has a ton of power as well. You see him sparring. You see him just, just shadow boxing. He just looks like he looks mean still. He still has that drive in him. So, yes, I'm saying that it doesn't really make sense at their age. But since they're doing it anyway, might as well just dive into, what to look for, really. So, with Roy Jones Jr., what made him as great as he was in the past, and Roy Jones Jr., just stopped fighting, this is me without checking, 2.5 years ago? He just stopped fighting. We're talking 29 years of fighting here, where Mike Tyson had about, 20 years of fighting? Now, this is me without checking, so I just want to throw that out there. But what made Roy Jones Jr. so great in the past, as we all know, Mike Tyson was great all over. He had speed. He had a ton of power. I think I actually read where a right hook at full strength of Mike Tyson can kill a full-grown male horse with one punch to the head. That's something else, right? It's crazy. But Roy Jones Jr., what made him so great in the past was his speed. Roy Jones he was faster than everybody he fought, and that's what made him so great. Where he used to showboat a lot, but he just knew he was going to hit his opponent and drop his opponent, and that's it. It was kind of like nobody really wanted to fight Roy Jones, and nobody really wanted to fight Mike Tyson back when they were in their prime, back when they were, on top. But this fight was supposed to happen years and years ago, where Roy Jones Jr. ended up capturing, the heavyweight title and the middleweight title? And Mike Tyson was supposed to face Roy Jones. At least Mike Tyson wanted to fight Roy Jones, and Roy Jones Jr. turned it down because I guess he wanted more money. But what doesn't make sense on that is back then, Roy Jones Jr. was going to make, because we know Roy Jones Jr. sold a lot, but Mike Tyson also sold, I think Mike Tyson sold a little bit more than Roy Jones. Either way, they both sold a lot. But Roy Jones Jr. was offered $40 million That's not counting pay-per-view points. We're talking about $100 million that Roy Jones Jr. could have made to fight Mike Tyson. This is back then. I mean, who wouldn't fight for that now? Right? So them being on top to make 100 million back then is just, I'm not really sure why Roy Jones Jr. really didn't want to do it. I'm not going to say he was afraid. I'm not going to say that. But Mike Tyson was a scary dude. Mike Tyson was like a pit bull with no leash, just on the loose. I mean, come on now. So to actually, where Mike Tyson back then, he was just, oh man, he was something else, man. He was just something else. It was just, it's so crazy when, you see him fighting back and watching his highlights and just his past fights. And he was just an animal. He was an animal. Mike Tyson was an animal. Roy Jones Jr. was very exciting to see, right? As Mike Tyson was. But I mean, with Roy Jones Jr. being there, real cocky, real, showboating, but then get the job done anyway because of his speed, how fast it was. Now, if Mike Tyson catches Roy Jones Jr. in this fight now, currently, Roy Jones Jr. is going to go down. If Mike Tyson catches him with the speed I see Mike Tyson with, Roy Jones Jr. does not have anything next to his speed and where he did when, years ago. Neither man does. But Mike Tyson looks like he still has it, though. Mike Tyson at 54 years old looks like he could still knock out maybe people in the top 10, top 15 right now. Not going to go as far as top 5 or top 3 even. But Mike Tyson looked like he can drop Roy Jones Jr. And I do see Mike Tyson getting this job done with Roy Jones. I do believe Mike Tyson is going to catch Roy Jones. And I do believe Roy Jones Jr. is going to probably take a nap. So I do see Roy Jones being cracked. And if he gets cracked early, he's going to go down early. And I see him being counted out. I see him actually being down for the count. And that's pretty much it. But I just wanted to put this video out there. I just wanted to let you guys know that I am interested in this fight right here. I just wanted to let you guys know what I thought. I really want to know your guys' comments. I know this is an MMA channel once again. I know, but I just needed to bring this fight up. I did need to talk about it. Make sure you hit the like. Make sure you leave a comment. I really want to know what you guys think on this fight, who you think is going to win and how. And make sure you subscribe. Please subscribe. I really love every single one of you guys. Make sure you guys are staying safe, and I'll see all you guys in the next one.